I'm John Bowden, up to part 4 of our interview with Bill Szymczyk, the producer who joined the Eagles on the Border. Glenn Johns had already done the album, with the exception of maybe 2-3 songs. Bill didn't really want to be part of a country band, and we'll get to that in another clip, but he was very curious about the Eagles. So his second album with the band was One of These Nights. It really brought the band to a whole other level, to the more electric level. But One of These Nights, interestingly, as we say in this clip, had so many different lead singers. Everybody sang, including Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Randy Meisner, Bernie Leadon. All sang songs on this, and Bernie had 2 songs. We'll get to that famous instrumental in this clip. But with One of These Nights, there were starting to be real serious friction. And Bill Szymczyk is one of those guys who knows he has to make the album work. He has to keep the peace. He has to keep the Eagles together as a band. And this would end up being their biggest album at that point. Of course, it got bigger with Hotel California. But he knew his mission, and you'll really feel it on these clips when he talks about certain camps going against other camps, which is normal because the Eagles were young. And they had a lot of fame, and they had a lot of recreational stuff. The perils of early fame and great songs. Keeping the band together on One of These Nights with Bill Szymczyk on Rock History Music. With One of These Nights, for instance, when you look at that album had a lot of vocal cooks. Like, I mean, Bernie had, Journey of the Sorcerer and Wish You Peace, which, as you probably know, is voted a lot of the times. And we talked about this, me and Bernie, about, one of the worst Eagles songs of all time. I have always liked it. I've always liked that song. But, you either like something or you don't. You can't help that.
Right.
But
right.
Journey of the Sorcerer, that bombastic, big, beautiful piece, which I loved as well. Was that hard to get on the album? Did they ever fight over that?
Well, it was hard to get on the album because Glenn and Don didn't want it. Yeah. And Bernie had this banjo thing, and Glenn and Don we don't do instrumentals. I said, well, we're going to do one now, because that was the only way I could make Bernie happy, keep peace in the band, and move on. It was to do that song. So basically, it was Bernie, myself, and Felder that did almost 90% of that. I mean, after Glenn and Don played on the basic track, they just took off, and we finished it.
What's your thought on that?
I'm very proud of that track. I think it's a killer track.
When you were trying to make peace, you're just that type of guy. You're going, I got to make this album like a manager should. I got to keep this together. We've got to finish this project. So where you're going, I'm just going to keep these guys happy. They're a band. They're young. They're indulging in things. Was that your take on it?
Yeah, pretty much. But it was. Everybody, like I said, everybody was on the same page except Bernie during One of These Nights, and it was like, okay, I got to keep him happy at the same time. And so when I talked to Don and Glenn about, well, I'm going to do this instrumental with Bernie. And I said, it's going to have to be here, or because he's only got the one other song on the album. So they finally acquiesced and said, okay, go ahead, do it.
They're all still doing their thing. They just announced their long farewell tour.
This will take a while. The longest goodbye. This is going to take about 3 years.
What's your take on them still going on strong?
Well, I love it. I mean, go ahead on. Twice a year, I really love it.
Why is that?
We get paid.
Yeah.
Mailbox money.
The Thrill Is Gone, and what's the Eagles song? After the Thrill Is Gone. I don't know why. Yeah. People latch onto that like crazy.
Yeah. When they Don and Glenn said, we got this song called After the Thrill Is Gone. I went, oh, great. That's cool. I know what to play before it.
But was that an accident? Do you know? Did you ever know that?
No, they came up with that line, and then I think it was after that they realized, oh, right, that's a little take on Szymczyk's record with B.
Who decided on the harmonies with the Eagles? Was it Glenn and Don? Who would be closer?
No, not necessarily. It would be Glenn and Don and Randy initially, and Timothy, and even in the early days, Bernie. I mean, Bernie's a good singer, And they would early on would do 4-part, and it was when it was the 4 original guys, and it would be mostly Glenn would be he'd be the what we called him the lone arranger, and he would be the one that would start with you got to sing this part, well I do this part, and so on and so forth.
Was there a part when you were listening and tracking these guys when they were singing? Graham Goebel of LRB, who I've interviewed many times, he would talk to me about him, B. Birtles and Glenn Shorrock being together and doing those harmonies, that even when they were doing it, they were going, whoa, man, not that they wanted to brag about themselves, but they go, oh, they're just, and the Eagles are one of the ultimate, them and CS and Y, and ultimate examples of that. Were there times where you're behind the controls and going, or were you just working?
I'm just working.
Okay.
Just waiting to get everything in tune so I could double it.
We're going to have a lot more from Bill Szymczyk coming up tomorrow. Every day for the next about a week and a half, we'll have a different clip from Bill. If you're a Patreon member, you'll have access to all the clips early. There'll be links in the description where you can join our Patreon. If you want to support the channel in other ways, there are links there as well. You can make a PayPal donation. But really, like our videos, share our videos, comment on them, subscribe to the channel, spread the word for us. We'd appreciate that. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Music.